I want you guys to look at this. Here's a hypothetical chaos scenario. No, wait, look. You guys, at first you complain there's nothing to talk about. Now I give you something to talk about.
Okay.
I'm excited about that.
Can you dumb this down, please?
Joey,
Yeah.
you've come around with me after a while.
I'm in.
Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame went out.
So they're all in.
Texas wins the Big 12. Washington or Utah wins the Pac-12, beating Washington State has lost the Apple Cup. Northwestern beats Michigan, Big Ten title game, meaning both Michigan and Ohio State have 2 losses now. LSU and Georgia win, so they finish the season with 2 losses.
Okay, so I see
UCF wins out, undefeated.
Can I give you a Rece Davis answer to that? Are we answering this yet?
Just a second. Here are the teams that you would be evaluating UCF against. Michigan, Georgia, LSU, and by definition of this, also a 2-loss Oklahoma team, because that would be Oklahoma getting 1 more loss, either in West Virginia or in the Big 12 championship game. Now it's time for our blimp-worthy debate. It's brought to you by Goodyear. What will the committee do if this chaos happens and they look for a 4th team? You've been chomping at the bit. You want to give a Rece Davis answer?
Rece Davis answer all the way. How did they lose? You can't tell me all those teams lost. Like,
that's fair.
Did Georgia lose a nail biter to the best team in the country right there at the end of the season?
That's fair.
You know, so I think that would come into play. And I think the committee, under that circumstance, would put in the team that was the most competitive late in the game, that they believed in the most to be the best team. So it would be.
What would you do? That's what I'd rather know. What would they do? What would you do?
You asked the question. You did say, what would the committee do?
Okay. Well, now I'm asking it different.
Okay.
What would you do?
I would whatever team I thought was playing the best or played the best down the stretch.
Based on the resumes you see. Let me try here. Based on the resumes you would see as a result of that, what would you favor happening? What would you think would happen?
LSU easily. LSU has a win over Georgia. They're going to get a win against Texas A&M by your scenario. They beat Texas A&M. They do have Auburn. They have Miami, who are ranked at the time. And so you're looking at a UCF team that is going to play USF, who's not ranked. And then if they go to championship game in the AAC, maybe a Houston, who's not ranked. And so easily the resume of LSU, when you put up those teams.
Okay, so
can I ask you one question?
Here's the thing. Okay, so it's been a slow week at the office because there's about 10 teams on this page right here.
Yeah.
Here's my problem with LSU. We're discussing one of these teams making the 4 seed to play Bama in the semifinal.
Yes,
I've seen LSU Bama.
Yep.
Doesn't matter.
29-0. Yes, it does. And as a fan and as a committee, I don't want to see that again. So I don't want to see it again.
Either, but the committee has to go resume and who's better.
But
UCF,
they can also go subjective
UCF
judgment.
is the team that should go. Put UCF in. They're the team that should go.
Under that scenario.
In this crazy scenario, winning 25 in a row.
Resumes are out the window for the rest of our lives.
What if Houston's ranked in the AAC championship game and Oliver's back on the field for him, which we expect to happen this weekend?
Here's a reminder.
And that offense with Mackenzie Milton and all that speed against Bama's defense, I'd like to see that because I've seen what LSU would do against Bama.
Here's a reminder of the scenario. Top 3 went out, and then everything gets turned upside down underneath it. UCF winning out. Kirk, how would you evaluate this situation?
You really just laid out. We were down in Orlando, and everybody's asking what has to happen, and we're like, if there's so much chaos that would have to happen to get UCF up into the top 4. What you just laid out might be it. I mean, if it comes down to that, you'd have LSU and Georgia, and David made a really good point. If Georgia lost a hard-fought game, last-second field goal type of thing, you'd have to Georgia fans would hope that LSU and Georgia were not in the same cluster, because if they're deemed a cluster, then you would be left out because of the LSU win head-to-head in Baton Rouge. I personally, it would depend on how those 2 games looked, LSU against A&M, and then also, of course, the SEC championship. But if UCF keeps playing and looking the way they have, this year, these last few weeks, you could make a very strong case that that's the scenario that they would need to throw them in there as that 4th team.
We're talking about a UCF team that won't add anything else to their resume. And so as we sit
Why do you say that, though?
Because, USF is not ranked.
USF is a 4-loss team. They've lost 4 in a row. You don't respect Houston at all.
I don't respect Houston more than I respect Texas A&M. And so LSU is going to have a chance to add Texas A&M, where UCF, who is at 9, as LSU is at 7. So the committee is telling us right now, LSU is a better football team than UCF.
Remember this, though. That's true.
Right.
You're exactly right. But the one thing to remember is they never consider conference championships until they're actually won.
You're absolutely
right. So that would be another mark on UCF. Okay. David, real quick, and then Kirk, and then we need to
Real quick, I think one thing to keep in mind was, if you put LSU or Georgia at 4, you get rematches.
Right. And I think that's a big deal.
If you put Michigan there, you don't get a rematch. So if they were all competitive games and they were close losses, I think in that scenario you could make a case for Michigan because you've seen the other 2 games and you saw the losses for the other 2 teams.
I agree with Joey completely. They should put who they think the best 4 teams are, but the one that they'd save themselves, Kirk, a lot of foot stomping and people wailing and gnashing of teeth. Just put UCF in.
Well, I think I misunderstood. I thought you said, what would we do, not the committee. I thought you were asking us what we would do.
I did. We're free flowing here.
Then what Joey continues to go back to the resume and what the committee is seeing. You're never going to sell the committee or anybody on UCF and their resume because of the conference that they plan. You're just going to have to walk away and just say, I want to see that offense with Mackenzie Milton and all that speed matched up. And you just have to say that they're a better team. They deserve an opportunity to be there is the only thing you could say. You could never look at their resume and say, oh, boy, look at this win over UCF or USF. Look at this win in the AAC championship. That's not going to ever fly. So it's just they're a better team. That's why they would deserve it.
We don't have time for the other one, too. You know, the strength of record metric, which has been 15 of 16, by the way, in predicting or in getting the playoff teams in. If Clemson were to win the ACC but lose to South Carolina this week with these other scenarios, they'd be like 7th